got geopolitical tensions, we've got different things happening on different parts of the world.
Yes.
Energy independence, what does this mean for Hawaii?
What we want to do is get rid of energy dependence. That's what we have to start looking at, and that we can do something about. And there are practical steps that can be taken. I was referring before we got started to a very interesting, called a special sustainability issue. Pacific Edge, you're familiar with it because you've got an article
Right.
in here. And one of the things that I commented to you in this Pacific Edge magazine from April and June of last year was an article on the kids. And to them it's not strange at all. The idea of green energy, the idea of alternative energy, the idea of renewable energy, the difference between alternative and renewable energy. Those things are not strange concepts to the kids at all.
That's amazing.
So we, I think, have this opportunity now to take what is a rising consciousness, not just in Hawaii but in the world, everything from climate change to global warming to acknowledged dependency on fossil-based fuels, and the increasing competition for it, raising the prices, and
right.
how that leaves Hawaii even more vulnerable than it was before. Take advantage of all of that and start moving towards less dependency and more independence in terms of resources and utilization of existing local resources. Mm-hmm. And I think people are far more ready to act on that and to invest in it, not just in terms of money, but invest in it programmatically and even emotionally.
Are we on track? The mandate is 70% clean energy by 2030. We've got, about a decade or so. How is it looking?
Well, that's another thing that bothers me, like the word independence. So 70% by 2030. Oh, how are we going to get there? It's like saying it's 1 minute to go in the Super Bowl and we're on the 10-yard line, right? How are we going to do it? It, in a certain sense, demoralizes people to say that. I've never been necessarily in favor of setting these numerical goals and timelines as such. I'd much rather say, what do we have available to us? And how can we explore and exploit those resources that are available to us? What will it take to accomplish that? Once that's determined, then get moving. Some will go faster than others. Do we have to redo the Public Utilities Commission? Do we have to see about, do we have to reconceive of how we transmit energy? Do we see this as a statewide, that is to say islands-wide in the plural, or is this island by island, everybody on their own, and good luck? Those are the kinds of things that I think will determine whether we get to 60%, 70%, 80%, whether it's 2020 or 2030. That's less important than having an integrated plan and a plan and a game plan and a timeline that everybody agrees to, that they can see themselves participating in and accomplishing.
Then what about the playing field for developers, for investors, for the utility, for people that need to be involved to make this happen?
That's why you have to have a partnership. For example, we have to determine probably that we can't go island by island in terms of how we charge for electricity, how we charge for power, how we charge for energy. We're probably going to have an integrated plan where we're all going to help one another. So if we take this aloha spirit towards one another, if we regard ourselves as all in this together, I've used the analogy of in order for the canoe to get to the shore, everybody has to paddle together. If the partnerships are in geothermal, where the state uses its bonding authority, works with the private developers, if we can benefit the Hawaiian community in the process, and if it should be on ceded lands, for example, with geothermal, then the geothermal has to the degree it can be developed, needs to be shared. If there's a surplus from the Big Island, how do we get that distributed then elsewhere?
I see.
The majority of the population's on Oahu, but probably the majority of the alternative and renewable energy resources are elsewhere. So let's work together. We always did that before.
Okay. And in terms of what the state can do, the state has to coordinate and it has to be a part of the whole. Do you see anything that the state can do differently, or perhaps that it's not doing now?
Probably the latter part is right, what it's not doing now, as opposed to doing differently. Because in some respects, what we need to do has been so well known for so long that it's been a little self-defeating, because the outlines of where we need to go and how we need to get there, biofuels, solar, wind power, these are well known to everybody. Again, referring to the article in articles in your these young people here that I see, the path of the entrepreneur, some of the young folks that are pictured in strategy for change makers, that kind of thing. These young kids, it's not so much that we need to do anything differently. What we need to do is have enough confidence in ourselves to know that the path that's clearly in front of us has to be taken, and that means, in some respects, you gotta be ready to jump. It's like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. New world we're going into. Can we really make this solar work? Can we really change the utility company from being a combination of not so much manufacture, but one that is based on how much electricity it can sell, how much energy it can sell, to being a distribution. How much does it distribute, and how does it distribute it? I mean, we're in a situation now where somebody says, "God, we're losing money. Why?" Well, more people are using solar than ever before.
I saw that article.
It's supposed to be saving us money. Well, it is. They're not paying for it anymore, but they're contributing to the grid that's there. So what we're having is we're in the midst of change now. It's not so much different than it is that the change is actually taking place, and we have to deal with the consequences of that change. It's like moving from horses to the internal combustion engine.
Would you consider it a moving target?
It's moving in this sense that there's not a set line to be advanced. Some things will move forward faster than others. Some things will work better than others. We had a lot of hope for ethanol at one point, but that has its limitations and even some of its drawbacks right now. We've never been able to effectively do that here in Hawaii in terms of manufacture. So we may have to reconfigure and reconsider what we want to do with ethanol, whether that may have had its purpose at the time, but it may not be the best alternative for us to pursue right now. And we want to avoid the competition in the sense that is biofuels better than geothermal? We don't want to be in a situation where geothermal is fighting with biofuels, and then we kind of leave solar and on the sidelines, or wind over here on the periphery. It's not a question of that. It's a question of how do we use such advantages as may exist for one or the other, or in combination, in a manner that advances energy, less energy dependence from the outside as it's possible to achieve. I want to move forward on every basis possible, to the degree and extent that it can be, and not see it as one trying to achieve something over the other.
Good, good. Well, we appreciate your comments today. Is there anything you'd like to say or add?
Well, I think we have to have confidence in one another and in where we're going. We do have choices in that sense. I guess I'm circling back to my initial comments that in some senses we've been demoralized a bit. We tend to think of ourselves as victims. We tend to think of ourselves as being in a passive position. We need to go on offense. And we need to go on offense with the confidence that we know where we're going, we know where we want to get to, and we have a pretty fair idea of how we can get there. The question is, do we have the will? Do we have the determination? Do we have the perseverance, the sense of perseverance? And above all, the confidence that I mentioned, that we can make this. And the only way we can do that is if we work together. If we have a unity of purpose. Again, this is so Hawaiian. This is so the values of Hawaii, which are subsumed by every group that's come here, including the original Polynesians, after all. That these islands are, in fact, our opportunity to live in paradise. And if you live in paradise, you have an obligation, it seems to me, to be good stewards of that paradise. It's not something that's given for nothing.